Robin never planned to buy a pet that day, especially not one that could potentially get him in trouble with the Galactic Enforcement Authority. But life on Atra 4 had a way of presenting unexpected opportunities, particularly to those desperate enough to seize them. The market stalls of Refuse Haven sprawled before him like a chaotic maze, a labyrinth of contraband and curiosities from 100 worlds. Overhead, the purplish sky was partially obscured by the constant haze of industrial pollution that clung to the planet like a shroud. Traders from a dozen species barked and croaked and whistled their wares, each promising the best deals in the galaxy. Robin pulled his worn hood tighter around his face. 12 years old and small for his age, he'd learned the art of making himself invisible. It was a necessary skill for an orphan in a place like this, where children disappeared if they caught the wrong person's attention. The government orphanage where he lived was little more than a warehouse for unwanted kids, a place where head counts were performed with the same enthusiasm as inventory checks in an abandoned storage unit. "You there, human child?" Robin flinched at the voice, high and reedy. He turned to see a spindly alien with ashen skin and too many fingers beckoning from a dingy stall. Large, liquid eyes blinked sideways at him. "I have something special today. Something just for you," the merchant said, glancing furtively around the marketplace. Robin knew better than to approach strange vendors who singled him out. But he also knew that interesting things often happened in precisely these situations. Cautiously, he stepped closer. "What is it?" he asked, keeping his voice low. The last thing he needed was to attract attention. The merchant grinned, revealing a row of needle-like teeth. "Something rare. Something that would fetch thousands of credits with a right buyer." With dramatic flair, he unveiled a small container on his table. Inside, nestled in what looked like shredded packing material, lay a small creature, or perhaps an egg, no larger than Robin's palm. It was a dull grayish blue with a faintly scaly texture. "What is it?" Robin repeated, trying not to sound too interested. "Who knows? Who cares?" The merchant waved his bony fingers dismissively. "It's alive but weak. Too weak to be worth much to serious collectors. But for you," he lowered his voice conspiratorially. "For you, just 50 credits. Robin almost laughed. 50 credits might as well be 50,000 to him. "I don't have that kind of money. What do you have?" The merchant leaned forward eagerly. Robin hesitated, then reached into his pocket. He pulled out the small collection of coins and trinkets he'd managed to save over months of scavenging, his entire worldly wealth, alongside a small metal puzzle box he'd found in a scrap heap and painstakingly repaired. The box was the only thing he truly valued, a treasure that kept his mind occupied during the long, boring nights at the orphanage. The merchant's eyes gleamed with unexpected interest at the puzzle box. "That and the coins," he said quickly. "Take it or leave it. One-time offer." Robin looked at the strange object in the container, then back at his puzzle box. Something inside him, some instinct he couldn't name, told him this was important. This mattered. "Deal," he said before he could reconsider. The merchant snatched the payment with startling speed, then thrust the container into Robin's hands. "No refunds, no guarantees," he chittered, already turning away to rearrange his stall as if Robin were no longer there. "And if anyone asks, we never met." Robin carefully tucked the container inside his jacket and hurried back toward the orphanage, taking a circuitous route through back alleys to avoid the more populated streets. His heart pounded with the thrill of acquisition and the fear of discovery. Whatever he'd just bought, he suspected it wasn't entirely legal. Back at the orphanage, Robin slipped through the kitchen entrance during the dinner rush, when the staff were too busy to notice one small boy among dozens. The dormitory was nearly empty, most children still queuing for their evening meal. Robin's bed was in the corner, partially hidden by a malfunctioning lighting panel that had never been fixed. He'd rigged a small curtain of scavenged fabric to create the illusion of privacy. Behind this makeshift barrier, Robin carefully opened the container. The creature, still he wasn't sure if it was an egg or a small animal, had shifted slightly. There was a crack along one side that hadn't been there before. "Hello," Robin whispered, feeling slightly foolish. The crack widened. A tiny sound, like the ping of crystal being tapped, emanated from within. Then, with surprising suddenness, the outer shell fractured completely, revealing what lay inside. Robin gasped. It was a creature unlike anything he'd seen before, roughly the size of a kitten, with a serpentine body covered in iridescent scales that shifted between blue and purple as it moved. Two delicate wings, more like membranes than feathered appendages, unfurled from its back. Its head was distinctly reptilian, with a tapered snout and alert eyes that shone with unmistakable intelligence. When it opened its mouth in what seemed like a yawn, Robin caught a glimpse of tiny, pearl-white teeth. "A dragon," he breathed. "You're a dragon." The creature tilted its head, regarding Robin with evident curiosity. Then, to Robin's astonishment, it chirped, a sound somewhere between a bird's trill and the chime of a small bell. "You need a name," Robin said softly, extending a cautious finger. The dragon sniffed it, then rubbed its head against Robin's hand in a gesture that reminded him of a cat seeking affection. "I'll call you Aspen." Aspen chirped again, seemingly in approval, and then did something that made Robin's breath catch. A small ruffle of scales along its spine briefly illuminated, casting a soft blue glow across Robin's hidden corner. "You have to be quiet," Robin warned, though he couldn't suppress a smile. "If they find you, they'll take you away." As if understanding, Aspen curled into a tight ball, the glow fading from its scales. Its eyes, however, remained fixed on Robin with what could only be described as trust. For the first time since he could remember, Robin felt a connection to something, someone else. A strange warmth spread through his chest. "I'll keep you safe," he promised, gently stroking the dragon's back. "We're both unwanted, I guess. But we have each other now." Little did Robin know how much that promise would be tested, or how much that connection would change not just his life, but the fate of an entire world. The first week of hiding Aspen was easier than Robin had expected. The dragon slept most of the day, curled up in a nest Robin had fashioned from scraps of fabric inside a ventilation duct above his bed. At night, when the other boys were asleep, Robin would carefully retrieve Aspen and feed him bits of protein rations he'd saved from his own meals. Aspen grew quickly. By the end of the week, he'd doubled in size, now closer to a small cat than a kitten. His scales had brightened, the dull grayish blue giving way to a vibrant azure with hints of purple along his spine. The glowing pattern there, a series of interlocking diamond shapes, appeared more frequently now, especially when Aspen was excited or curious. More remarkable than his physical development was the bond rapidly forming between them. Aspen seemed to understand Robin on a level that went beyond simple pet and owner. Sometimes, Robin would find himself thinking about something, a particular food he wanted to share, or a place in the orphanage he wanted to show Aspen, and the dragon would react as if he'd heard Robin's thoughts. "Can you hear me?" Robin whispered one night, focusing intently on the question in his mind. Aspen stared back at him, those intelligent eyes unwavering. Then, slowly and deliberately, the dragon dipped his head once. Robin's heart raced. "You understand me. Really understand me." Another dip of the head, this one accompanied by a soft chime-like sound. "This is amazing," Robin breathed. He concentrated, forming a clear image in his mind. "Fly to my shoulder." Aspen unfurled his wings, still too small for true flight, but sufficient for short glides, and launched himself from the bed to Robin's shoulder, landing with surprising grace. "We need to be careful," Robin said, stroking Aspen's head. "If anyone finds out what you can do." He didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. The dragon nudged his cheek gently, a gesture Robin had come to recognize as reassurance. Their secret might have remained undiscovered longer, if not for the mandatory room inspections. The announcement came during breakfast 2 days later. The Galactic Enforcement Authority would be conducting a search of the orphanage premises. "What are they looking for?" Robin asked Tomas, the boy who slept in the bunk beside his. Tomas shrugged. Heard one of the staff say something about illegal aliens. Not people, creatures. Something escaped from a research facility or something. Robin's blood ran cold. He glanced at the clock on the wall. The inspection would begin in less than an hour. Back in the dormitory, Robin retrieved Aspen from his hiding place. The dragon sensed his anxiety, wings fluttering nervously. "We have to get you out of here," Robin whispered. "Just for today. I'll come find you tonight." He carried Aspen to the small window at the back of the dormitory. It overlooked an alley filled with disposal units, giant metal containers where the orphanage's waste was collected. It wasn't an ideal hiding spot, but it was outside the building and unlikely to be searched. "Stay hidden," Robin instructed, focusing on images of concealment and patience. "Don't let anyone see you." Aspen chirped softly, then nuzzled Robin's hand one last time before slipping through the window. Robin watched as the small dragon glided down to the largest disposal unit and disappeared inside an opening in its side. The inspection was thorough and tense. GA officers, dressed in the black and silver uniforms that inspired fear throughout the galaxy, moved methodically through the orphanage. They carried scanning devices and small, cage-like containment units. Whatever they were looking for, they clearly expected it to be small. Robin sat on his bed, trying to appear bored and disinterested as an officer scanned his corner of the room. The device beeped softly as it passed over his pillow. "This area shows residual energy signatures," the officer said, her voice flat and emotionless behind her helmet's visor. "Consistent with the target species." Robin's heart hammered in his chest. "What species is that?" he asked, aiming for casual curiosity. The officer ignored him, turning to address her superior. "Trace elements only. The subject is not present but was here recently." The superior officer, distinguished by red markings on his uniform, approached Robin. "Boy, have you seen any unusual creatures in the orphanage? Something that might glow or change colors?" Robin shook his head, forcing himself to meet the officer's gaze. "No, sir." "You're certain? Harboring illegal xenofauna is a serious offense, even for a child." "I haven't seen anything," Robin insisted. The officer studied him for a long moment, then turned away. "Tag this area for follow-up monitoring. The creature may return." After they left, Robin remained on his bed, his mind racing. They knew Aspen existed. They had devices that could detect him, and they would be watching. He couldn't bring Aspen back to the orphanage, but he couldn't abandon him either. When night fell, Robin slipped out through the kitchen exit. The staff rarely bothered to secure it properly. Few orphans were foolish enough to run away when the alternatives on Atra were even worse than the institutional neglect they endured. The alley behind the orphanage was dark, the faint glow of the planet's rings providing barely enough light to navigate by. Robin approached the disposal unit cautiously. "Aspen," he whispered, "are you there?" A faint blue glow emanated from within the container, followed by the familiar chiming sound. Moments later, Aspen's head poked out from the opening, his scales illuminated with obvious joy at seeing Robin. "We can't go back," Robin told him, extending his arm for the dragon to climb onto. "They're looking for you. We need to find somewhere else to hide." Aspen climbed onto his shoulder, wings folded tightly against his body. In the dim light, Robin could see that the dragon had grown even more in just these few hours, now the size of a small dog, his presence more difficult to conceal. "I think I know a place," Robin said, more to reassure himself and Aspen. "But it's a long walk." Together, they set off into the night, away from the orphanage and deeper into the chaotic sprawl of Refuse Haven. The underground markets of Atra were never truly closed. As the planet's 3 moons rose into the sky, the more legitimate vendors packed up their wares, only to be replaced by traders dealing in goods too questionable to display in daylight. Robin kept to the shadows, Aspen hidden beneath his jacket, which now strained to contain the growing dragon. Their destination was a vast junkyard known locally as the Heap, a mountains of discarded technology and broken machinery stretching for kilometers in the industrial sector. Robin had discovered it during one of his illicit explorations months ago, finding the labyrinthine paths between towering piles of scrap to be excellent hiding places when he needed to escape the orphanage for longer periods. "We'll be safe here," Robin assured Aspen as they entered the sprawling wasteland. "At least for a while." The dragon chirped doubtfully, his head swiveling to take in the unfamiliar surroundings. They found a secluded spot near the center of the heap, where several ancient shipping containers had collapsed against each other to form a crude shelter. Robin cleared enough space for them both, using scrap metal to further conceal the entrance. "Home sweet home," he said with forced cheerfulness. Aspen explored their new shelter, sniffing curiously at the various mechanical components scattered about. Suddenly, he froze, his head tilted as if listening to a distant sound. The pattern along his spine began to glow brightly. "What is it?" Robin asked, immediately alert. The dragon turned to face him, and Robin felt a strange sensation, like a gentle pressure inside his mind. Then, without warning, a series of images flooded his consciousness. A vast, star-filled sky, a swarm of creatures like Aspen, but much larger, their bodies illuminated like constellations against the darkness. Planets forming life, emerging, and the dragons, star drakes. The name came unbidden to Robin's mind, serving as guardians, maintaining balance. The vision shifted, growing darker. Hunters. Capture. The scales of the star drakes harvested for their energy properties. Cages. Hidden laboratories. Dwindling numbers. Finally, a single, urgent impression. Danger approaching Atra 4. A solar storm unlike any in centuries. The planet's protective field weakening. Devastation imminent. Robin gasped as the connection broke, leaving him dizzy and disoriented. Was it your memory? Your people's memory. Aspen's eyes seemed to glow with the same intensity as his scales. "You're not just any dragon," Robin whispered. "You're something important, something rare." He reached out to touch the glowing pattern on Aspen's back. "And these marks, they're not just pretty lights, are they? They're power of some kind." The dragon dipped his head in confirmation. "An Atra 4 is in danger," Robin continued, trying to process everything he'd seen. "That's why you're here. Somehow, you're connected to this planet's safety." Another confirmation, coupled with a sense of urgency that Robin felt rather than saw. "But what can we do? You're still so small, and I'm just nobody. An orphan kid no one would listen to." Aspen chirped forcefully, nudging Robin's hand. The message was clear even without telepathic images. "We try anyway." Robin nodded slowly. "Okay, but first we need help, and I might know where to start." They waited until the following evening before venturing out again. Robin had spent the day carefully observing the junkyard from their hiding place, noting which areas seemed most active and which were left undisturbed. He'd also scavenged some additional food. Thankfully, the heap was home to numerous small creatures that Aspen seemed more than happy to hunt. Their target was a structure on the eastern edge of the junkyard, a converted cargo hauler that served as both home and workshop to an eccentric mechanic known simply as Tade. Robin had never spoken to the man directly, but his reputation was well known among the orphans. A genius with machines, willing to repair or modify almost anything for the right price. "He might help us," Robin explained to Aspen as they picked their way through the junkyard. "Or he might turn us in for a reward. We won't know until we try." The dragon, now too large to hide under Robin's jacket, followed close behind. His growth had continued at an alarming rate. He now stood nearly waist-high to Robin, his wingspan impressive when fully extended. The glowing pattern on his spine had expanded as well, forming an intricate network of illuminated lines that pulsed with energy. Tate's workshop was a chaotic jumble of machinery and tools, surrounded by a makeshift fence constructed from scrap metal. A faint humming emanated from within, accompanied by occasional flashes of light. Robin approached cautiously, Aspen staying close to his side. "Hello," he called out, stopping at what appeared to be a gate in the fence. "Tate, are you there?" The humming stopped, followed by a clatter of tools. A moment later, a figure emerged from the shadows of the workshop. Tate was not what Robin had expected. Rather than the grizzled, old mechanic of his imagination, Tate was relatively young, perhaps in his 30s, with dark skin and a wild mane of hair tied back with various mechanical components. His clothes were a patchwork of heat-resistant materials, covered in pockets filled with tools and parts. "Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying," Tade said dismissively, not looking up from the device in his hands. "And if you're looking for work, I don't need." He stopped abruptly as he finally glanced up, his eyes widening at the sight of Aspen. The device clattered to the ground, forgotten. "Is that?" "Well, I think it is," he breathed. Robin stepped protectively in front of Aspen. "Depends on what you think it is." Tade approached slowly, his eyes never leaving the dragon. A star drake. A baby, but unmistakable. He looked at Robin with newfound respect and caution. "Kid, do you have any idea what you got there? The GEA would pay a fortune for it. Or worse, capture you both for study." "We need help," Robin said firmly. "Not a lecture on how much trouble we're in. We already know that part." Tade hesitated, then opened the gate. "Come inside. Quickly, before someone sees you." The interior of the workshop was even more chaotic than it appeared from outside. Every surface was covered with projects in various stages of completion, from small handheld devices to what looked like components for a starship engine. The walls were lined with screens displaying technical data, news feeds, and security camera views of the surrounding junkyard. "So," Tade said after securing the door behind them, "want to tell me how a kid from the government orphanage, yes, I recognize the uniform, ended up with a creature that's supposed to be extinct?" Robin glanced at Aspen, who had begun exploring the workshop with evident curiosity. "I bought him from a merchant in the market. He was just an egg then. And now he's communicating with you?" Tade asked shrewdly, noting the way Robin and Aspen seemed to understand each other. Robin nodded. "Not with words. With images, feelings. He showed me things about his kind, about why he's here." He took a deep breath. "Atra, 4 is in danger. A solar storm is coming, and the planet's defenses are failing." Tate's expression shifted from skepticism to concern. "What kind of defenses?" "I don't know exactly. Something the Star Drakes used to maintain. A shield or barrier of some kind." Tade turned to one of his screens, typing rapidly. "There have been some anomalous readings in the upper atmosphere lately. The official explanation is routine fluctuations, but..." He paused, studying the data. "If these patterns continue, we could be looking at a catastrophic breakdown of our radiation shielding within weeks." "Can it be fixed?" Robin asked. "Not by conventional means." Tade glanced at Aspen, who had paused his exploration to watch them. "But with a star drake. Maybe. The legends say they could manipulate energy fields on a planetary scale. But this one's just a baby." Robin approached Aspen, placing a hand on the dragon's back. "He's growing fast and getting stronger." Aspen chirped in agreement, the glow of his scales intensifying briefly. "Even so," Tade continued, "we need to access one of the ancient terraforming beacons. The planet was colonized using a network of them, but most have been decommissioned or repurposed. The primary beacon is under GA control now, part of their headquarters in the capital." "The same people hunting Aspen," Robin said grimly. "The very same." Tade ran a hand through his hair, dislodging a small gear that clattered to the floor. "This is complicated." A sudden alarm blared from one of the screens, cutting off further discussion. Tade rushed to check it, his expression darkening. "GA patrol," he announced. "Heading this way." They must have detected the energy signature. He turned to Robin and Aspen. "Hide in the back. There's a compartment under the workbench. It's shielded against most scanning technology." Robin ushered Aspen toward the indicated spot, but the dragon resisted, turning instead toward the door with a low, warning growl. The pattern on his spine pulsed rapidly, changing from blue to an alarming red. "He senses something," Robin realized. "They're close. Too close to hide," Tade confirmed, checking another screen. "We need a different plan." Before they could decide on a course of action, the workshop's outer fence rattled with impact. Mechanical voices announced from outside. "Galactic Enforcement Authority. Open the premises for inspection by order of Section 7, Xenofauna Regulation Code." Tade grabbed a small device from a nearby table and pressed it into Robin's hand. "Take this. It's a navigation unit with coordinates for an old friend of mine, someone who might be able to help." He pointed to a partially disassembled vehicle in the corner. And that hovercraft can get you there. It's not much, but it works. What about you? Robin asked. I'll stall them. Tate managed a crooked smile. Not my first run-in with the GEA. Go out the back way, past the power converter. Head east, away from the city. Robin hesitated, but Aspen was already moving toward the hovercraft, clearly understanding the urgency of their situation. Thank you, Robin said quickly. Tate nodded. Just keep that dragon safe. And if you can, save our planet while you're at it. With that, he turned toward the front of the workshop, grabbing a welding torch as he went. Coming. Keep your visors on. Just finishing a sensitive project here. Robin and Aspen slipped out the back entrance as the sound of the GEA forcing their way in echoed behind them. The hovercraft, thankfully, started on the first try, a testament to Tate's mechanical skills despite its junked appearance. With Aspen crouched in the small cargo area behind the seat, Robin guided the craft away from the workshop, keeping low to the ground and using the massive piles of junk as cover. Behind them, flashes of light and the sound of raised voices suggested Tate was putting up a convincing distraction. The navigation unit led them eastward, away from the sprawling cityscape of Refuse Haven and toward the less populated wastelands that dominated much of Atra 4's surface. As they traveled, the industrial haze gave way to clear skies, revealing the stunning rings that encircled the planet, and, more ominously, the first faint ripples of the approaching solar storm, visible as undulating waves of light in the upper atmosphere. Robin glanced at Aspen, who watched the sky with evident concern. We'll fix it, he promised, though he had no idea. How? Somehow. The coordinates led them to a small settlement nestled in a valley between jagged rock formations. Unlike the chaotic urban sprawl they'd left behind, this community appeared organized and intentional. A collection of sturdy structures built primarily from native stone, with gardens and water collection systems visible even from a distance. As they approached, a figure emerged from the largest building, standing at the settlement's edge as if waiting for them. Robin slowed the hovercraft, uncertainty gripping him. Had Tate sent them into a trap? But as they drew closer, he saw that the waiting figure was a young woman, perhaps 16 or 17, with a mass of curly hair pulled back from her face and practical clothes that suggested a life of hard work. She watched their approach with obvious curiosity, but showed no sign of fear at the sight of Aspen. Robin stopped the craft several meters away, still cautious. Are you Tate's friend? The girl raised an eyebrow. Tate doesn't have friends. He has people who tolerate him. Despite her words, there was affection in her tone. I'm Luca, and you're in serious trouble, bringing that creature here. Aspen growled softly, but Robin placed a calming hand on his head. We need help. Tate seemed to think you could provide it. Luca studied them both for a long moment, then nodded toward the settlement. Come inside. The radiation levels are increasing. It's not safe out here for long periods. She led them to the main building, which turned out to be a communal space for what Robin soon learned was a colony of orphans and runaways, children who had escaped the government facilities or been abandoned outside the official system entirely. Unlike the neglect of the official orphanage, this place hummed with purpose. Children of various ages worked together on tasks, ranging from food preparation to equipment maintenance, all under Luca's quiet but firm guidance. We've been monitoring the atmospheric changes for months, Luca explained as she showed them to a small room equipped with scientific instruments and displays. Our settlement relies on early warning systems. We're more exposed out here than in the cities. One screen showed a visualization of Atra 4, surrounded by swirling patterns of energy. Red areas were spreading rapidly across the display. The planet's magnetic field is destabilizing, Luca continued. When the solar storm hits in full force, approximately 2 weeks from now, by our calculations, the radiation will penetrate to surface level. Few will survive. That's why Aspen is here, Robin said. His kind used to protect planets like this one. He can fix it. Luca looked skeptical. A single juvenile stardrake? The legends speak of entire flights working in concert. Aspen approached the screen, studying the display with evident understanding. He turned to Robin, and once again, images flowed into the boy's mind. Asterisk, a massive structure, shaped like a spire, reaching toward the sky. Energy flowing upward, connecting with the planet's natural field. Star drakes circling the spire, enhancing and directing the energy. Asterisk. The terraforming beacon, Robin said aloud. He needs to reach it. It's still functional, just dormant. Luca frowned. The primary beacon is inside GEA headquarters in the capital city. It's been repurposed as their central power source. Getting anywhere near it would be suicide. We don't have a choice, Robin insisted. If we do nothing, everyone dies anyway. Luca turned away, her expression troubled. For several minutes, she studied various displays, occasionally making adjustments or noting readings. Finally, she faced them again. There might be a way, she said slowly. The GEA is hosting a planetary conference in 3 days. Security will be focused on the delegates, creating potential gaps in their internal systems. How do you know this? Robin asked. A small smile touched Luca's lips. We may be outcasts, but we're not ignorant. Information is currency out here. She gestured to a communications array in the corner. We have our sources. Robin looked at Aspen, who met his gaze steadily. The dragon had continued to grow even during their short journey. He now stood as tall as Robin's chest, his wings impressive when fully extended. The pattern on his spine had developed further, forming what almost looked like a circuit diagram across his back. So we infiltrate GEA headquarters during the conference, Robin said, thinking aloud. Get Aspen to the beacon. Then what? Then he does whatever star drakes do, Luca replied with a shrug. If the legends are true. Robin placed a hand on Aspen's head. They're true. I've seen what his kind can do. He took a deep breath. But we'll need help. I can't do this alone. Luca studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Our settlement survives because we work together. If your dragon represents our only chance. She straightened her shoulders. We'll help you. For the next 2 days, the settlement became a hive of activity centered around their mission. Luca's people proved to be resourceful beyond Robin's wildest expectations. They had detailed maps of the capital city, including service tunnels and maintenance passages that might allow access to GEA headquarters. They constructed specialized equipment for both Robin and Aspen, a harness for the dragon that would partially mask his energy signature, and adaptive clothing for Robin that could mimic the appearance of various authorized personnel. Meanwhile, Robin spent every available moment with Aspen, strengthening their mental connection. The dragon's growth had begun to stabilize, as if he'd reached a plateau in his development, but his abilities continued to evolve. He could now project images with greater clarity, and Robin found himself able to share his own thoughts in return without speaking aloud. On the morning of the 3rd day, the day of the conference, Robin stood with Luca at the edge of the settlement, watching as final preparations were made for their journey. Are you scared? Luca asked, her voice matter-of-fact rather than concerned. Robin considered the question. Yes, he admitted, but not of the danger. I'm scared of failing. He glanced back toward where Aspen was undergoing final adjustments to his harness. Everyone's counting on us. Fear of failure is healthy, Lucas said. It means you understand what's at stake. She paused, then added more gently. But remember, you're not alone in this. Robin nodded gratefully. For someone who had spent most of his life feeling isolated and unwanted, the support of Luca and her community felt almost as miraculous as finding Aspen. Their plan was straightforward in concept, if complex in execution. Using Luca's connections, they had obtained credentials that would get them into the service levels beneath GEA headquarters. From there, they would need to access the central core where the primary beacon was housed. While security would be diverted to the conference taking place in the upper levels, they would still face automated systems and regular patrol checks. The journey to the capital took most of the day, with Robin, Aspen, and Luca traveling in a modified transport vehicle that concealed the dragon from casual observation. As they approached the city, the stark contrast with Refuse Haven became apparent. The capital was clean, orderly, and heavily patrolled, a showcase of efficiency that belied the chaotic nature of most of Atra 4. Stay calm and act like you belong, Luca advised as they passed through the outer checkpoints. Their credentials, identifying them as maintenance personnel assigned to conference support, passed scrutiny without issue. The service entrance to GEA headquarters was tucked away in an unremarkable side street, monitored by a single guard and automated scanning systems. Luca approached with confidence, presenting their credentials with a bored expression that suggested this was routine for her. Atmospheric control maintenance, she explained, gesturing to the equipment in their vehicle. Calibrations for the conference rooms. The guard barely glanced at them before waving them through. The scanning system hesitated over Aspen, concealed beneath specialized shielding in a large equipment case, but ultimately registered him as non-biological technology. Once inside, they followed the service corridors as laid out in their memorized maps. The headquarters was a massive structure, with the primary beacon, or what remained of its original purpose, housed in a cylindrical chamber at its center. It now served as the building's main power source, its true function forgotten or ignored by those who had repurposed it. As they neared the central core, the challenge intensified. Security checkpoints became more frequent, and the automated systems more sophisticated. At one junction, they were forced to wait in a supply closet for nearly 20 minutes as a patrol passed through their intended route. "We're running out of time," Luca whispered, checking a small device that monitored the approaching solar storm. "The radiation levels are increasing faster than predicted." Robin could feel Aspen's growing agitation through their mental link. The dragon knew better than any of them how dire the situation was becoming. Finally, they reached the entrance to the central core, a massive circular door marked with warning symbols and restricted access notifications. Luca approached the control panel, attaching a bypass device she had prepared. "This will only work for about 30 seconds, she warned. "Once we're inside, we'll have minutes at most before the system registers the intrusion." Robin nodded, preparing to release Aspen from his containment. "Ready when you are." Luca activated the bypass. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the chamber beyond. They rushed inside, Luca quickly securing the door behind them to delay discovery. The central core was breathtaking. A vast cylindrical space extended upward for at least 10 stories, with the primary beacon dominating the center. A crystalline spire that pulsed with energy, surrounded by a complex array of power conduits and control systems. Walkways spiraled around the spire at various levels, with workstations positioned at regular intervals. "There," Robin said, pointing to the base of the spire. "That's where Aspen needs to be." They hurried forward, Robin freeing Aspen from his containment. The dragon emerged with evident relief, stretching his wings and shaking himself like a dog after a bath. His scales immediately began to glow, responding to the energy of the beacon. "Hurry," Luca urged, keeping watch at the entrance. Robin led Aspen to the base of the spire, where a circular platform seemed designed specifically for the purpose they intended, though those who now operated the facility had clearly forgotten its original function. "Do you know what to do?" Robin asked Aspen, their minds connecting. The dragon nodded, positioning himself at the center of the platform. He spread his wings to their full extent, the glowing pattern on his spine intensifying until it almost hurt to look at directly. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed from the ceiling, and a mechanical voice announced, "Unauthorized access detected. Security protocols engaged. All personnel evacuate immediately." "They found us," Luca called from the entrance. "The door's locking down." Robin turned back to Aspen. "Now or never." The dragon reared up, his front limbs lifting off the platform. The glow from his scales suddenly expanded outward in a wave of light that connected with the spire. The crystalline structure, which had been pulsing with a steady rhythm, suddenly flared to brilliant life. Energy coursed upward through the spire, visible as a stream of iridescent light spiraling toward the ceiling. The entire chamber began to vibrate with power, consoles lighting up with ancient displays long dormant. "It's working," Robin shouted over the growing hum of energy. The door to the chamber burst open, and a squad of GEA officers rushed in, weapons drawn. At their lead was a commander with distinctive red markings on his uniform, the same officer who had questioned Robin at the orphanage. "Step away from the beacon," the commander ordered. "That creature is property of the Galactic Enforcement Authority." "He's not property," Robin shouted back, positioning himself protectively in front of Aspen. "He's saving your lives. All our lives." The commander signaled his squad to advance. "The Star Drake is a valuable resource. Its energy properties belong to the GEA." "You don't understand," Luca interjected, moving to stand beside Robin. "A solar storm is approaching. Without the beacon's protection, Atra will be devastated." "A convenient story," the commander sneered. "But our scientists have detected no such threat." As if in response to his words, the entire building shuddered. Emergency lights activated throughout the chamber, and a new alarm, different from the security breach warning, began to sound. A voice came over the facility-wide communication system. "Attention, all personnel. Atmospheric anomaly detected. Radiation levels increasing at exponential rate. This is not a drill. Implement emergency protocols immediately." The commander hesitated, his certainty visibly shaken. He glanced up at the spire, where the energy flow had intensified, now connecting with systems throughout the ceiling that had been dormant for generations. Robin turned to Aspen, who was still maintaining the energy connection with visible strain. Through their mental link, Robin could feel the dragon struggle. He was still too young, too small to fully activate the beacon alone. More power needed, came the thought from Aspen. Connection incomplete. Robin didn't hesitate. He stepped onto the platform beside Aspen, placing his hands directly on the dragon's glowing scales. Immediately, a shock of energy surged through him, painful but not unbearable. "What are you doing?" Luca cried, moving forward. "Helping," Robin gasped. "He needs more connection." Understanding dawned on Luca's face. She turned to the GEA squad. "The dragon can't do it alone. He needs our help." For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the officers stepped forward, removing his helmet. "Commander, the radiation alerts are genuine. The upper atmosphere is destabilizing rapidly." The commander stared at the officer, then at the spire, then at Robin and Aspen. Conflict played across his features, the rigid adherence to protocol warring with the growing evidence of a planetary emergency. Finally, he lowered his weapon. "What do you need us to do?" "Join the connection," Robin said through gritted teeth, the energy flow becoming more intense by the second. "Touch the platform, or Aspen, or me. He'll do the rest." One by one, the GA officers approached, forming a circle around Aspen and Robin. Luca joined them, placing her hands on Robin's shoulders. The commander was the last to join, reluctantly placing his hand on the edge of the platform. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The energy flowing through Aspen surged, the glow from his scales expanding to encompass everyone in the circle. The spire's output doubled, then tripled, the stream of light widening as it reached the ceiling and connected with systems throughout the facility. Through Aspen's mind, they all saw the same vision. The energy extending upward through the building, into the sky, spreading outward to form a protective field around the entire planet. Just in time, as the first wave of the solar storm crashed against the newly established barrier. The impact was felt even within the chamber, a ripple of force that momentarily disrupted the connection before Aspen stabilized it. The dragon was changing, growing before their eyes. His scales shifted colors rapidly, settling into a deeper, more vibrant blue. The pattern on his spine expanded, covering more of his body with intricate, glowing lines. For several minutes, no one spoke. They stood united in the circle, sharing the burden of channeling energy through Aspen to the ancient terraforming beacon. Through their connection, they could all sense the solar storm raging above and the shield holding firm against it. Finally, the intensity began to fade. The immediate danger had passed. Aspen gently withdrew from the connection, the glow of his scales dimming to a soft, steady pulse. Robin collapsed to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. Luca helped him up, her expression a mixture of awe and relief. The commander stepped back, staring at Aspen with new respect. The creature, it saved us. His name is Aspen, Robin said firmly. And yes, he did. In the days that followed, Atra 4 underwent rapid changes. The activation of the primary beacon had triggered dormant systems throughout the planet. Ancient terraforming technology designed to maintain and repair the world's environment. The storm continued to rage in space, but the planetary shield held firm, giving the people of Atra for a new appreciation for the fragility of their world. The GA, faced with irrefutable evidence of the star drake's importance, rescinded their classification of the species as illegal xenofauna. Instead, they established a new directive to locate and protect any remaining star drakes that might exist throughout the galaxy. Robin and Aspen were given official recognition as planetary guardians, a status that provided them with resources and freedom to continue their work. Luca's settlement was legitimized as an alternative care facility for orphan children, with proper support and recognition at last. As for Aspen himself, he continued to grow and develop, though never reaching the massive size of the ancient star drakes in his ancestral memories. His connection with Robin deepened, their communication becoming so seamless that words were rarely necessary between them. One evening, several weeks after the crisis, Robin stood with Aspen on a hillside overlooking the capital city. The sky above was clear, the planet's rings visible in stunning detail through the purified atmosphere. The fading light of the solar storm could still be seen in the distance, a reminder of what they had narrowly avoided. "What do you think?" Robin asked, both aloud and in his mind. "Stay here or keep moving?" Aspen's response came as a series of images. Other worlds, other beacons, other storms approaching. The message was clear. Their work on Atra 4 was just the beginning. Robin smiled, placing his hand on Aspen's head. "I was hoping you'd say that." Together, they watched the twin suns set over the horizon. Two beings who had once been discarded as unwanted, who had found in each other the family they both lacked, and who had discovered a purpose greater than either could have imagined alone. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with dangers and discoveries in equal measure. But they would face it as they had faced everything else, together. The unwanted orphan and the baby dragon, bound by a connection that had saved a world. And perhaps, in time, would save many more. The end.